Thanksgiving 2022. The It has been a strange 2 years, or more so. So I'll begin at the beginning of where this journey began, or parts of this journey. Went in the military with, with the intent to honor a passed away friend who was a ranger medic. Went to Damneck. Well, we first went to to Iceland, then Damneck. Now, at this time, I had no idea of my background or family history. It was just, yeah, you're just from Jamaica, and I figured just a normal whatever. The Admiralty of the Navy, in their racism and the bigotry of who they are, did everything they could to keep me from excelling. More so, not just because of what my skin tone is, but because of my background. And they will argue that, oh, because that we were trying to, no, everything was about racism and what I represent. And more so, less than the background, but that I was from the burbs. I wasn't black, so to speak, because there's only culture. There's nature and nurture. And nature we can speak about. If you talk about Graham Hancock, the few survivors of Atlantis, which I definitely am, genetic wise. And you're talking about genetic memories and things of sorts. Or nature, how we grew up, and the idea of the law. What is the law to help grow humanity, a bunch of walking monkeys, into something more than a bunch of walking monkeys? Even though most people are pretty much still act like a bunch of walking monkeys. Um, so go to that. They go out of their way, pull away an individual, the warrant, who was providing cover because the Navy itself is very bigoted. It still is very bigoted, and it was done so on purpose. They murdered or got Admiral Borba to murder himself, and then you have McRaven, who ended up getting Marchenko placed in jail, and then became an admiral for it. So he was rewarded for shite behavior. So they sent me. So they gave me the dangle because they knew that what I was trying to do. So they dangled that. Go to Damneck. So I went to Damneck. Now there's a lot of things that I cannot say that are classified about how I got into Damneck. But let's say it wasn't easy as far as who they select and why. Get there, McRaven starts stacking in this idiot Hammett, using both the CO and the N6 for EO, because they were trying to, because psychopaths are mimics. They really aren't people. They're 2-year olds with a mimic personality. Hammett was, because everything was stacked, it got it to made it look like I wasn't living up to snuff, when the reality is it was the exact opposite. After I leave, I sent back the information to Master Diver King and Scotty, who were my mentors. They used that information to realize what was going on and what I was fighting against, and why I did what I did. Why I did pull the EO complaint, because they were going to try to change the nature of the command to a more psychopathic command. And one thing Marchenko was able to do was counteract that psychopathy. And what they were, these persons, these externalized personalities, are were were and are attempting to overthrow the Constitution of the United States as placed down by the founders and replace it with the Constitution of the Confederacy, which is nothing more than corporate oligarchy. And it focused turn everybody, Caucasians especially, into just slaves. It is the nature of this personality. They don't exist. They're just demons. They're un. It's like what do you have? I think it's cluster A. You have schizotypal cluster A. That's a splitting of the superego where they're actually raised vibrations. But cluster B, when they split, it is the id. It is the stomach, the fear that's in control, and that's all they live on. If you look to say contemporary mythology or American mythology, we would, which George Lucas created, was Star Wars, and then he broke it into the Sith and the Jedi. Now, where this comes into play is I'm going on my second walkabout, dealing with, couldn't understand why I was always having problems with certain things, and realized now I just knew that every time I got near my mom, my life would go backwards, which didn't make sense. But it makes sense now that she was scapegoating, and that occurred after we allowed, or my sister-in-law weaseled her way into our family by getting my brother all fucked up on drugs. And I remember that in high school, and I was like, oh, but I just didn't know all the whatever. And then my mom just started to abuse me, and my thing about, as I would just compress inwards, didn't, she was just it was just horrible growing up. And then she tried to make it look like my dad was the abusive one when she was actually the most abusive person. Because Catherine took on the behaviors of black Americans, and she buried Dolores, who is of royalty. So these are two incompatible systems, and as I was part of my first walkabout, I ended up going snowboarding, and it went like, why am I in a place where my manners are normal, but I should not be normal? And I started to figure those things out, but I didn't really get to that until only recently. Fortunately, I had a nanny, Grandma Walker, black African American. She only nannied very wealthy families. I believe she was actually canonized as a saint, which is kind of strange. But in many ways, it makes sense. Unfortunately, she went to her grave thinking that my mother was lying, and but I know now she knows she's that she wasn't. But I viewed her more as my mom than my actual biological mother, without a doubt. Because what matters is who we are, the core. My mom started to abuse all of us, including my sister, and now my sister has shown that she is not as strong as she used to be. But that's another story that's kept to myself. So through this, I went on my second walkabout. Had my plan, my whole life goal plan was I'm just going to go, go snowboarding, be retired by the time I'm 40ish, and then just go live my life. Kind of happened that way due to severe PTSD from the EO and the fact that I'm off the charts intelligent. Now, my mother would try to use my intelligence, and what I've learned is she would try to say that I was a retard, as we call it, or a special person, but she knew that my scores always showed me being off the charts intelligent. And she would do these things purposefully. So I remember that as I went back through my life, and I went, why would she do these things? Why did she do those things? And she was using, as a health nurse, she would purposely undercut my mind, and then she used what's called a mind lock, which is way that worked. One of the ways is she would create a statement, and she knew that if you didn't have this different social background to understand it, then call you stupid, like imply that. And she tried that when I was on my second walkabout, but this time I knew what it was, and I was able to look inside her mind and go, "Wow, that's awful shitty of you." She really is just a shitty person. I never really realized just how horrible my mom really is. Because my sister-in-law, who is extremely shitty, believes that she is entitled, after destroying our family, entitled, who is very much a narcissist, and the same black American bigotry. She's just as much bigotry and NPD psychopathy are pretty much the same thing, same behavior sets. So calling somebody a bigot, yeah, they're just basically just calling them a cluster B, a psychopath. She did the same thing. She destroyed my brother. He lost his innateness, and he even can't even speak English, which is kind of sad. But my sister-in-law then used my mom to abuse both my brother, my sister, and myself. And then she gets in my face as I had tried to do the right thing and help. I was going to build a business, had everything prepared for the 2008 financial crash. I had. I was going to just every time I got, and then it was the time I realized I was looking at my mom, and I realized that she was doing this on purpose. And so my sister-in-law believes that she's entitled, and she's entitled to be alive, and that's about it, because she should. It is only my self-discipline that she's alive, because I was going to kill her. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. And she's arrogantly stupid enough to get in my face. And at this point, unfortunately for her, it wouldn't be very smart. But she's an idiot. Continuing on. And she also made her daughter created the bipolar and just fucked up her whole family. But the pretty one she sent to Atlanta, which I don't even know her, but I know that's the same energetic vibe as I reach out through the force, through the quantum field. It's sad because that's at black African America in general, poverty in general, that they still are enslaved, and they, from the, and they keep biting on the same crap, and any blah, 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 quote melanated person from another country that comes here tries to help black Americans, and the first thing they all do is start saying you're white or you're this or you're that, and it's mostly just fear. And when it's like, well, fuck you then. We know those behaviors you're doing are the behaviors of a slave, and that the people that you and I was able to. It's just that the people you call your leaders usually, outside of the clergy, are just criminals and gangbangers, and that's been done to you on purpose. And they, at this point in time, want to try to use those same gangbangers to, for me to quote, like the whole idea right now is to steal my ideas and then hand them off to Dr. Dre and Jay-Z, and then the Kardashians, who are absolutely Kim Kardashian's the absolutely worst thing for having a black America. But they, you saw that with this recent thing where Kanye paid her $1 million for not posting stupid crap. So he was positive reinforcing the fact that she was shitting on his daughter, creating all kinds of pain, shitting on him, and then he gives her equity position in his business, and then she rolls out to her network going, see, oh, this is so awesome, this is how you treat your men and you get everything you want. And Kanye West is a fucking moron. You should have paid her, paying her $1 million for not posting every year. Okay, 6 months. You've been a good girl, and then if she treats him right, she gets a little more money. If she doesn't, then she gets less money. But instead, she turned him into his bitch. Same thing would happen to Jenner. Hollywood pushed Jenner out of his own self until he became a hermaphrodite transvestite. And that's what they're trying to do to a lot of people. They try to get me to disassociate, but I'm too strong within myself. I know who my soul self is. They attacked me while I was at Vipassana. Thus, I realized was now not just a psychic attack, but a definite directed attack by Stradvitas and McRaven, who have been attacking my ability to get a job and everything else over the last decade and a half. And so right now they're just basically trying to protect their own ass. And they're going to say, well, you can't prove that. And they're like, watch me. Because you're civilians now. You aren't military anymore. And no matter how much, quote, power from the Carlyle Group or the BlackRock groups or these hedge funds, you're still civilians. It's equal justice under the law. And in most people, there's no such thing as equal justice under the law. Well, it depends on how much money you have. Well, and the thing is, well, you're broke. And I'm like, not so much. There's always a way. And so right now, the 1% who have stolen and been strip mining everything from America are on the attack. Now, how I end up getting into this fucking crazy mess, so I was saying I was on my second walkabout. Now, I had met this chick years ago on my first walkabout. I didn't go snowboarding. What I didn't understand is I didn't met her, in LA, and she tried to pull all those things at first. That's like, I just never really was a dude who just jumped into bed with chicks. It just wasn't like, because I'd like that, not so much, it's mostly shy, but two, wasn't the, it's just, I don't know, it's just like, if I like a chick, the last thing I want to do is it's more, I just want to hang out, have a conversation. And anytime someone's pulling, their energy is pulling, I can sense it. And women doing their whole back and forth is such a turnoff. To be honest with you, it's just like, this chick doesn't have any self-esteem. I got shit to do. That's basically how I view it. And so I just got to take off, go do my thing. And most women do not. And I always used to notice that women don't ever act like themselves until they get a boyfriend. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna go sitting there fighting over some chick. And I was in my early 20s. I was bouncing, and plus having growing up in a bar. Not growing up in a bar, but we had a bar, so you get to see human nature. But also, bouncing. I just looked at, and I would see these chicks get these dudes and all riled up over something, nothing, and I'm like, man, I'm just pretty mellow. I don't really see the need always to be all riled up, and I would notice that. So I was like, man. And then the worst part is, or they would go peekaboo because I was really extremely hot. They would, and now, which was they're purposely done to get, as we now know, men now know, because we men have gotten fed up with this crap with the MGTOW movement, men going their own way, going on to their own purpose. I've just gotten fed up with the shit and the games that women are playing. The whole thing was if you worked hard, you'd have access to that one woman and you live the rest of your life working and going through life together. But women have so devalued themselves that the dudes are like, yeah, I'm cool, we don't need that shit. And then racking up body counts are just like, whatever. Giving it away easy to the asshole who was actually, the biggest pussies. You could always, very, dudes who really don't have any backbone, but they talk a lot of bullshit. When young, you didn't know. I didn't know these things because I'm a pretty straight up guy. But as life brings to you law, knowledge, wisdom, you grow, and it's like now I can follow the language sets. And go, you're just a pussy. I always knew they were a pussy, but now I can say this is why you're just a chick. Psychopaths, narcissists, and borderlines are essentially women, and they're not alphas. They're actually beta males, especially when it comes to civilization. They're just the animal, but they're good at mimicking. So so this chick, I met her years ago. She was trying to be a school teacher in Compton. What she was really doing, what I meant as on my second walkabout, I was coming back down, going through LA, through different directions. Hey, let's stop by, see what's going on. And then I get wrapped up in this wackadoo of never dealt with a cluster B before. Or usually if a chick even starts doing weird shit, I just kind of go, whatever, I got shit to do. But I was like, all right, because I was mostly because I figured because in LA, the first time I met her, I was like, I'm going snowboarding, dude, and I was staying on my purpose, and I took off to go to Tahoe. And didn't really care, didn't sleep with her, didn't give a shit about her. I was like, hey, yeah, it's cool, dude. Yeah, it was good, But I didn't realize she was just a drug addict, and it's not so much about the fact that she's a drug addict. Like it was her mom who turned her into a drug addict, and she was just mimicking her mother, who was really a shitty human person, human being in general, and in particular. But the thing is, I was on the second time. My thing was okay, different 20 years apart situation. I'm like, I was trying to figure out my own mom, and I was like, how many one percenters do I ever meet that live around middle classers? So the middle class kind of people. Now she's a trust funder. Bitch has never worked her a day in her life outside of trying to be a teacher, but apparently I bet she was fucking all the dudes in the high school that she were the school she was, or just doing drugs, and that's why she lost her job. But I, of course, didn't figure this out. And then if you've never been in the back and forth and the twisting wackadoos of a cluster B, it is terrifyingly horrible. Only problem is with her with this situation is I had already gone through what's called the Jungian conjunction of the opposites, as I had in college. For my humanities courses, I was always taking courses on religion, world religions, and mysticism, and so that was my thing. And I'd already gone through, and logic and philosophy. So I'd already gone through what's called the conjunction of the opposites and the unus mentalis, which is the conjunction of the mind, which is conjunction of the left, right, brain, or the masculine and feminine of self, and then the mind-body conjunction, which is the conjunction of the mind to the body, to where it's basically the world slows down, or actually things speed up, but it looks like it's slowed down. And it's from the mind body. And then things become rainbow bright land. And I did this sober. That's the thing. It was not. It was done purely out of logic, and it's what I've come to realize is because I'm ambidextrous, and kind of like in the vein of Richard Feynman, and because the faggots are going to say, well, he's no. I'm like, no, you don't, you faggots. Go back to being faggots. And that's the hermaphrodite faggots, and there's two different types. There's the androgyny gay folks who are, that's what God made them as, and then the hermaphrodites, who are they are the mimics, and the reason that you see in the Bible and why they were killed because they were just hermaphrodite. They were the hermaphrodite demons who were not who were who either took over a person who God made that way, who was androgyny gay, or and those are the one that'll mimic, and they'll mimic, especially if they're masculine, they'll mimic the feminine. And then you see the dudes who've been disassociated come back from jail and the way they walk. All of that's designed to mimic feminine and switch over a masculine man's thinking process, and then get them to disassociate. And that's what happened to a lot of the persons in the in the hood, because they've put so many black men behind jail, in the bar, in jail, so that they become extremely try to become overly masculine, or they've been so disassociated. But continuing on, so this chick was so she's a middle 1%er going through this crazy shit. But since I had already gone through, usually what happens, she does that, and the meme demon of the cluster bees tries to feed. And unfortunately what happened is, for her, since I was already a psychic at this point, I would, even though I knew I was a psychic, but I just pretty much jumped it up as, having really high intelligence, which is the same kind of thing, because you're Numina. Still fighting the mind lock of my mom, so I was still having difficulties with that situation. Until now, it doesn't exist. It's easily broken through. Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy, and all your bullshit. Quite helpful you've been. The so the what was it? so she tried to do that, and unfortunately for her, where she would, the beam demon would usually have a direct line in other people's heads, she would rock it. In mine, I was able to connect directly back towards her, and that was the first time, and it opened up her child self. And in so doing, I was able to figure out what happened, because the child was always acting, trying to talk to her dad, and her mom was always, who was nothing more than a gold digger of low class. And I don't even think the dad was multiple generations of 1% upper class. I think he's only about second generation, maybe third at most. So he really wasn't on my generational level. And as I now know. So, their nanny was her mom's pimp. She was pimping out her mom. And anytime this child tried to tell her dad, then the dad figured out what she was saying, and then the mom would constantly, he would, every time he would try to break her out of the situation, her mom would positively reinforce her to be just a shittier and shittier and shittier human being. Now, this minor celebrity and the drug dealer was, my celebrity's in love with this chick because she gets to do everything, and she rapes both of them. All three of them rape this one chick. Then they run to Kathleen Kennedy to protect them. And so, because this drug dealer, uh, who is a cartel member, runs to get protection from Dr. Dre, Jay Z, Snoop Dogg, who's the other one, and the gangs in particular, and the gangs and cartels. Now they're trying to overturn the Constitution, which is quite hilarious. Using Jay Z, and his ego can't get it there for the fact. So they're trying to all use me and then do the normal cluster B bullshit. But that he's the drug dealer is now dead, deceased apparently, thankfully. But in her thing, I informed her I will bring civilization down upon her head, and I damn well mean it. I am not done. Because it's not just the drug dealer, it is this particular little shit who's always gotten away with everything. Just like our last dear president, who's been lying to the white working class, telling them he's working for them, when the reality he's working for the 1%, and he's trying to make himself king. As all fascists, it starts good and then it turns shitty, but playing on their racism. So in doing so, I was studying her mind and how it worked, and I was able to map out a functional process that's universal. Of course, standing on the shoulders of giants, such as Dr. Romney, Dr. Russ Turner, and a few others, little shaman online. It's the joys of the internet, is you can reach different information that you did not have 20, 30, even 20 years ago. Well, 20, and it backfired on her, so to speak. So now Kathleen Kennedy started to try to take, was it Gina Carano, and try to say that she was a racist. Well, in the reality of Gina Carano is just, she's a chick, she's a daddy's girl, um, you know, kind of like cyborg, UFC fighter. And probably what happened is she goes to Hollywood. She's really well liked in The Mandalorian, and she's a different form of femininity that wasn't controllable by this very evil wackadoo Hollywood. Because there's a lot of freaking. You go to LA, you could say there's a lot of narcissism, true cluster B demonic presence within LA, and I'm not talking about it like freaking a preacher dude. I even care less, but there is a lot of that externalizing and reactive behavioral targeting that it externalized personalities do. And so she gets there, and so they're probably trying to get her to disassociate, when the reality is she's like, go fuck yourself. I'm me, and I've worked my ass off to be me, and you're not going to tell me who I am. And Kennedy, being the shit person she is, probably didn't like that. And also, The Mandalorian was successful, and she couldn't stand that either, because her whole thing is to wipe out George Lucas and wipe out his memory. And the interview, she was saying, "Oh, this just comes out of your head." Well, everything is numinous, actually, except for those, even in the phenomena, even in the demons, that's still noumena, but it's just a lower phenomena of noumena. And so she was, so she attacks, and I just looked. I went, that was absolutely wrong, because this was after I'd posted on Facebook, making as much noise as I could, almost burning some of my networks, which were of high caliber. But I had to do this because I saw what Trump was really doing, because I was listening to what he was really saying, because he always uses doublespeak and most people can't understand it. And I'm like, the motherfucker says he's going to take over the country. He's doing all these things, and he's not, he's saying he's railing against 1%. No, he's trying to supplant the 1% and then do the exact same thing. His whole thing was to tank the country and then buy up everything on the cheap and then push out the 1%, because that was their goal, and it's still their goal, which is to tank the country, then buy everything up. But then he would say he was their savior. So that's the difference. He was going to do the exact same thing, just change it a little bit. And because he was trying to truly make himself a king, as Ivanka was talking about running for president, basically she was saying, "Oh, it's going to become the king after my dad." And he even said, "Oh, about not," he was just basically becoming a dictator. Bottom line, he even said it. He said it on. And I was like, "Can't you see this? Can't you hear this?" But in one of my videos, I had to placing this out after I had created this mind map of the cluster B, and I was able to look at the whole world and look over the timelines and see, like, this is what they're doing. And in that, I stated that George Lucas saved the Republic, because this was after that video was after the 2020 election, and the kids had shown up and they had voted in Biden. But if they had not shown up in the numbers they had shown up as, Trump right now would be a dictator for life. And we still are not out of the woods yet. So Kathleen Kennedy, 1%, figured, okay, because I triggered all the Star Wars things, she freaks out. So she figures she'll do the whole grind me down. Only problem is she's been grinding me down, trying to grind me down. She's used, Admiral Stavridis, retired, who's probably one of the first ones back in Damneck, who was trying to throw me off of my career, and then Admiral McRaven, who did stack that deck when I was in Damneck to make it look like I was a failure, except I had sent back what was going on, and Damneck made changes to their personnel to make sure those type of people didn't get in, because he's not a leader. He can only, quote, manage other psychopaths. And I've been able to prove that over the last 2 years, as they've been harassing and haranguing and then cutting off people from violating my rights to publicity, violating my rights of association, and then just blatant harassment and everything else. And because their whole thing was trying to figure out, okay, how can we rewrite this EO process so we can continue being shitty human beings, which places the Navy at and the Air Force, because most of these type of persons have gotten away with being Caucasoid and being shitty. The Army was less stupid because, well, a bullet doesn't care, and since our Army is usually always in war, it definitely has a true hardship shows who a man or woman really is. And those who are of integrity don't put up with the bullshit. But since the Navy has not been at war, and the Air Force actually hasn't had to have a near-peer fight or even a non-near-peer fight in such a long time, they become politicians, and politicians are just pretty much, this is your externalized personalities who do reactive behavior targeting. Now the fact that there's a structure, they're not going to be as easily able to get away with the BS that they've gotten away with, and so they're pissed, which I don't care. I'm actually quite happy with that fact. So over this time, I have constant harassment. I've figured out their behavior patterns, figure out how to make them split, because every attack is what they attack, it's the meme demon, it's the projection of self or the child self. attacking a full self. So as a full self, all I can do, I have to just sit in my space, and I can, I've mapped out their minds, mapped out who they are. Now they've put Iger back in charge, who really didn't think any much of George Lucas. He was just like, he was more on Kathleen Kennedy's side, and probably still is. But I have a feeling he's been a lot more shocked and surprised by that, what Star Wars really is. It's mysticism for the average Joe. And why their movie that Kathleen Kennedy put out flopped is because all of it had a lot of her racism and stuff, and that's the part I also stated within the video, the audio, when I was talking about it. I was like, these last three movies were her story, because there's so much racism in it and bigotry in it. And then her cohort of J.J. Abrams and Michael Snyder, who I went to school with at Full Sail, also worked with J.J. Abrams. And then she was setting up Rian Johnson to take over Lucasfilm, and he's a middling individual, another psychopathic type of person. And then her husband, who was a director, which I don't know his name because it ain't worth my time looking up. She was always able to hide behind the fact that she had Secret Service protection, and just create, and then you have this already toxic environment called LA and Hollywood. So it has been a very interesting ride. Now she even stated, oh, we're going to keep you here for a couple of years, and so they're trying to steal my personality. They use it in her writing group, because they have a camera due to McRaven illegally monitoring my position and everything I do, stuff the rights of personality and throwing it online and whatever. Now he was going to try to say that it was, because I've said something about my time at Dam Neck and a few things that I did, blah blah blah, when the reality is he's just trying to cover his own ass. And several times he has tried to kill me, and most of the times I've been able to use the fact that I know everyone's watching to step around it. Now he's gone into getting the Caucasians, the bigoted Caucasians, to devalue and be angry because, well, what they end up finding out is because His Royal Highness Prince Harry was trying to explain to her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, what was going on in the royal palace. And what it ended up being because it's still ongoing, is soon to be King Charles III and Camilla, the Queen Consort. Queen Consort is a raging psychopath, cluster B, and she's splitting up the family. Right now she's pulling Princess Anne close. She's trying to pull Prince William close through Lady Middleton. She's doing all these little things to turn King Charles into a tyrant. And so in all of this, I was able to reach out to, because of my affiliations as a mechanic, which is something my mom was trying to stop, but tough luck. I was able to reach out to Her Majesty on behalf of Prince Harry. Of course, I had to deal with Lady Markle going through some of her childhood traumas that weren't really traumas. It was mostly, once again, her black African American females tend to be very toxic. And then I end up showing through all this time how that toxicity has been designed into their culture so that they would destroy the average Joe, the guy who gets up and goes to work, and that leaves Caucasian Americans free reign to be just as horrible as they wish. And then we export that out to these other countries, and we're paying for it as we've lost the Sahel region. China's trying to take over, getting moves by the president at present to stop that. And how, if we had actually been the people that we are as Americans, the world would be our oyster, because the world really, we didn't get this rich just by being stupid. But it wasn't just about taking. we built a middle class that has been unraveled in the last 40 years by these same meme demons, which better is known as the South. And it's always been in America the battle between the superego and the ego, or for the heart, and the ego. I mean, the superego and the id being the South and the superego being the North, quite literally, and then the heart. But the Civil War was fought over how these id individuals, these psychopaths, were trying to turn themselves into kings and queens, and it was stopped. And they were trying to destroy democracy, and they're still trying to destroy democracy and overturn the Constitution, because the Constitution is designed to stop those id focused type persons. So all of this crazy stuff is now going on. I'm still just plugging away and being me. I'm like, yeah, losing's what other people do. Quitting is what other people do. So I'm just pushing my way through, keep going on. Find out that that the royal gene has passed on to me. I don't know if it's passed on to my brother or sister, but it was definitely passed on to me, as per the test from Her Majesty. Also, in the quantum field through that situation, because one of the things they love to do is with their whipsawing, they squeeze the amygdala, and then the amygdala, as you know, is the point. And I don't need to have my amygdala squeezed for my psychic sense to be on. My sixth sense is always on. What they ended up doing is if you do that, I just have a secondary line right back into their minds. And it's not vice versa. That's the thing that meme demons hate. They have to keep trying to put fear because they cannot vibrate at that higher state. But I could put more, because it's kind of like when you're talking about placing information onto a wave, quantum. Either not just quantum, but just regular vibratory waves. So it's been a crazy situation, and the 1% are freaking the fuck out, because within that conversation with Her Majesty, there is because of who I am and who my grandfather was, I still have royal rights, and I realize this. So I asked for her help in upholding the Constitution, and she agreed. Now the whole world is trying to say that this was not, well, actually mostly the Queen Consort and King Charles, in his infinite stupidity, thinking he's going to be gaining power, not realizing he's walking into the world's greatest trap for having his head removed, which Her Majesty realized, because I don't really care about the the crown. I just keep my oath to the Constitution as an American, and she knows Americans were pretty weird about our Constitution. If we're not bamboozled, unfortunately, you have Rupert Murdoch and Fox News bamboozling so many of Caucasians Americans and using their racism against them, and Australians everywhere. It's called the Murdoch effect. And these families, these far-right, dominionist, fascist families have been through the what's it called? The thing called the family. This group called the family, who are Christian dominionists trying to take over the world. And then Vladimir Putin picked up on this. He was able to get Viktor Orban in, and pretty much helped out Turkey, Erdogan, and he's been, between him and Xi, have been pushing the worldwide fascism and dictatorship. And he ought to do this. He's been trying to weaken Europe, get him locked into the gas and oil, pretty much. As any person who's ever done freelance, you don't want to have more than a client have more than 20% of your. You don't want to have a business of. You don't want to be locked into one client. And if you have a 50% client, you immediately try to get as many other clients to where that 50% is diluted to 20%. That's just not something you do. And if they try to start reeling you in tighter and tighter, you cut them loose. It's better to always have that clause in your contract, because you'll lose everything. You just be turned into an employee, which is what their goal is when they try to do those things. And there's people who are employees, and that's how they think. But if you're a true entrepreneur, you go, nope, I'm good, deuces. If you're an entrepreneur slash capitalist, you don't do that. It's not. That's what stupid people do. And there's a lot of people who are stupid, and they'll look at the money and go, "Well, I'll take that money," and then lose their freedom. You know, so the thing they want, they said they went out for, they end up losing. But as I digress. So in that, the the uh, the contract is a syndication with 100 parts for each of the royals and 200, 100, and but I put one as the Americanism says, big print giveth, small print taketh away. So I knew Her Majesty would make sure she had every letter, understood everything that was said within that. Why? Because that's how I was raised. Until my sister-in-law entered the family, we were still raised in the form of our royal heritage, even though we didn't know that. Which is what my sister-in-law destroyed within my brother. My sister simply, and then did that to my sister, and then also tried to do my mom then tried to do that to my niece, my sister's kid. Uh, my other nieces, they've all been they'll never ever understand what they don't understand because it's an innate thing that happens, and it's hard. You can't explain it unless you grew up in that manner. So, but I still maintain my innateness. I still maintain my royal bearing without realizing it, because that's also because of Grandma Walker and the fact that she was in trusted part of families of high net worth generational wealth persons. So in all of this, the thing is going on right now, and the reason she did that is like so that one, it would help Lady Markle. Two, it would give me the ability to protect the Constitution and also the crown. Because once I was able to prove to Her Majesty, you don't get to 90 something years old without learning a few things. To Her Majesty, one, I was truly true with what I'm doing. I don't really give a crap about all this crap. This is a headache. I learned everything I needed to learn so I can go snowboarding, and these assholes want to take all my shit. And I'm like, go fuck yourselves. You should have gone out and gone and did this instead. You're true busy band being cool and all whatever. I just need a couple $1 million to go buy me a house so I can go snowboarding and be left the fuck alone. Go travel around the world. And their greed and their neediness, and the 1% realize that this contract is a viable contract because it is the contract between the sovereign and the state. And I realized that because of history. The last contract between the sovereign and the state, or the most, is the Magna Carta. So by breaking the Magna Carta, now King Charles thinks, well, I'll break the Magna Carta, I'll have absolute power, I'll be the head dude, blah, 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 and then he's setting himself up to be a tyrant over Great Britain and the Commonwealth. He's setting himself up to get his head removed. Free people never give away their freedoms after, unless there's, then again, they're probably going to try and, he'll just fuck it up. And then because it also breaks all treaties, essentially the War of 1812. The Treaty of 1812 is non-existence because Trump broke the Constitution by Congress not holding Trump to an account for trying to overthrow the constitutional order. Even if you think that the whatever he was saying about the elections, which is completely false. How do I know? He knows. He said it. He said it himself. By Congress not bringing him in and then not holding him to an account, the Constitution is broken by precedent, because law is always done by precedent. So these two precedents have the major, because everything's about the contracts have been broken, the Magna Carta and the Constitution. And basically, Her Majesty said, you now have the power of a king, fix this. And then dipped. Because once and McRaven's brilliance of attacking, and I just, it's like, what was, she couldn't break me because there was nothing nefarious to break. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about this. It was simply this jackass thought he was going to attack me, and then he was going to fuck with my sister, because that's how the cartels work. The gangbangers and cartels work. So I really have no love for everyone babbling about the hood and the gangs and all this. Why should I? First, the Black American culture destroyed uh, my connections to my family, and she did it on purpose. And then two, from my work with the SEALs, the Navy SEALs, I know exactly how they behave. And if you knew what I knew, you're just like, it was appalling. And that was the reason. And so there was really no other reason. And then, we're very surrounded by a bunch of bigoted racists who keep breaking into my place, stealing my walking stick, and they will pay for that. But McRaven's using these people to harass, harangue, and whatever. And the irony is, only the bigots he can control, because everybody else who's not a bigot gets turned. Because it's like, unless you're just an absolutely horrible human being, you end up realizing I'm not a bad person. I'm not, I'm a jerk at times, but if I'm a jerk for a reason, it's like, hey, this shit needs to get done, not just to be a jerk. And people who have no self-esteem can't stand that, because it's a reflection of their lack of self. And so that's why they hate me. Not because I'm a bad person, but because they can't stand themselves. Now, am I just as greedy or whatever? Yeah, I'm gonna be greedy, but at the same time, I can be like, yeah, but I do some shady shit. Yeah, not a big deal. But there's always a purpose and reason. I always have a standard, and there's a lot of times in my life where I'd be, dudes, people will be like, oh, we need to do this, and I'm like, I don't need to do shit. I just need to eat. There's only three needs in life: food, water, and shelter. Once I figured that out, and what is the lowest point of food, water, and shelter I need? Everything else is a want. First thing, first you have to want to live. Okay, I want to live. So cool. Everything else after that's food, water, and shelter. So anything else is like, whatever. You're full of shit. So McRaven has been cutting off and lying to, especially the populace here where I'm at, which is a more rural town-ish on the western slope of Colorado, trying to make himself, uh, right now he has them all trying to get me out of here, and oh, he's reading us, and I'm like, there wouldn't be nothing to read, because there's really, most of the time, I don't really read a person. Most of the time I just listen. You don't read a person. You don't read into their psychology or anything. You just listen. They'll tell you what they're doing. Most shysters are shysterly, and it's just obvious. But if you're disassociated from yourself, you're not going to notice that there's shysterness. So unfortunately for these people who are surrounding me, they will all be sued, so I can get them McRaven. And if the BlackRock or Carlyle Group or any other outside group pays their legal bills, that will be an admission of guilt, especially with the so. And at that point, I'll just start hammering them, because I'll make sure they're absolutely broke. And we know McRaven and these large corporations are not going to give a flying fuck about these broke people, working class people around me. But they'll try to externalize their fear onto me, when the reality is the people who are screwing them, they're looking the wrong direction. If they had left me alone and not interfered in my work and not believe that they can break into my place, right now they're looking for the video where I caught them coming in, so they're scared to shitless, and I don't need that to send them to criminal court. It's actually better for me to, just like the January 6th committee is using the civilian side first, then use that civilian situation to send them to criminal court. And since I can make unlimited amounts of capital, I'm much more of a threat than they realize. And before, where McRaven had the cover of the Joint Chiefs, now he's just a civilian, and now he's basically working as a mercenary. because you cannot legally run a assassination operation on the United States, especially against a United States citizen for political reasons. Well, speaking of which, is the Democratic Party has been using me to help them win, and they've done quite well, considerably. But then they're trying to play, well, we weren't really there, in their gaslight. They owe me $200,000. Jay-Z owes me $10 million for freaking stabbing me in the back, and then a million plus for using my name. So it's up to 17 million. It's $1 million every day since last week. So it was 7 million tomorrow. So it's 17 million tomorrow, and then $1 million, and I'll just keep going because the contract with Her Majesty, as agreed. So as I said in the syndication, I figured I'd raise. One of the parts was I was like 15% of the 1% give to the royal household, so we can figure out who's trying to overthrow the country, overthrow the crown and the Constitution. Now, in America, they don't have to give 15%, and even in Great Britain, they don't have to give 15% of their net of their gross wealth. It's more of a suggestion, but in that suggestion, we figure out who's who in the zoo, who is really who's trying to overthrow the country, who's trying to overthrow things, who's trying to make themselves king or queen. And they've used Camilla from the very beginning, because Camilla was attacking Charles and Diana at their honeymoon. So Charles never was able to actually pair bond with Princess Diana. And that's another reason Charles is attacking his son and letting this bitch attack his son, because Prince Harry reminds him too much of Princess Diana. And then Prince William, who was older, just kind of like, whatever, dude, I'm going to be king, blah, blah, blah. Which, he keeps this up, he's going to lose his head alongside his father. Not by me, but by the fact that a tyrant will not be tolerated in this world. God's not going to allow it to happen. But we still need a Protestant king. Well, not need, but he's going to keep it up. So that's the contract I have with Her Majesty, and Her Majesty sometimes comes to me to inform me I gotta keep going, even though gosh knows I don't want to deal with all this stupid shit. Oh gosh, I don't want to deal with it. But if America falls, which is what Putin was betting on, especially by the fact that they've put all these people into the House of Lords who are basically Putin's spies into the House of Lords, and Charles has done nothing about it, and the lords and ladies have done nothing about it. Some of them have distanced themselves, but they're still doing business. They're still trying to overthrow the crown, and Charles and Camilla, and using Camilla, and she's such a when she's part of it, it's not just she thinks she's the more powerful person. She manipulates King Charles, and he's an idiot. He's not actually still a king. He's he's the king, but he's not been ascended to the throne. So, as I was saying, watching David Chappelle the other day, and I don't know if I said this in the last one, but it's good to come back to it. Why did Donald Trump why did these Caucasians so like Donald Trump? Because they thought he was telling them the truth. He did tell them the truth. He told them the outside truth. But remember, these people are only twofold beings. So if they tell you positive, they're going to immediately, it means they assume that they're negative, so they're going to give you a positive, and then they're going to give you back the negative. And the negative is, the positive was, oh, I'm telling you all these things, I'm going to do these things, I'm going to, these for you, which he was really saying, I'm going to do these for me. So if he's telling them positive outwards, what he's going to do is the exact opposite. So it's opposite day for them. And Donald Trump said, you talked about Hillary Clinton saying, you're not going to change the tax code and do this. And that's the same thing the Democrats are trying to do right now. They're trying to, under with McRaven, well, we'll just keep this guy going. We'll just keep rolling through. We won't hold Donald Trump accountable. We won't use the power of inherent contempt to pull Mike Pence in. We won't use the power of inherent contempt to pull Donald Trump and force him to testify in front of Congress. And they're just playing politics. They're playing weak, mealy-mealed, no backbone politics. And then the 1% are using the fact that of syndication, I get a 25% slice because I'm an entrepreneur and a capitalist. And then you have them trying to say, well, we don't need ultimately you don't need billionaires. I'm like, that's the same shit that happened in Ronald Reagan's time when he was doing gun control. We didn't need gun control until the Black Panthers showed up with legally toting guns, and all of a sudden California gets gun control. Kind of funny, but at the same time, I don't need their permission. I'm royalty. You can kiss my ass. If anything, you will get permission from me if I allow you to be billionaires. And this is what's pissing them off and driving them nuts because they know everything I'm saying is true. And then they're playing the jealousies, and then they want to say, "Oh, we want a seat at the table." All of a sudden, I was like, "Wait a minute! You had a seat at the table. It was $100 some odd billion that Jay Z and Don could have used to invest in your your neighborhoods." But what they were trying to think Don and Jay Z and their greed were saying, "Well, you were our agent," and I'm like, "No, no, no. Don was supposed to be an agency to me. Means I direct him to do the things I needed to do. But since with Jay Z, Dr. Dre, and the gangbangers thinking that I'm going to be doing what that I told, I can't let that happen. So therefore, there is no agency. You don't have Black America does not have a seat at the table. At least not those guys. There's a few other persons who I know I will work with, but they will try to get to them. And if they do stupid, they won't come. Then it'll just be okay. I'll just be like the other idiot who does investments. Because my main thing is I have the Commonwealth, but I'm not going to allow because these gangbangers and these cartels do what they did to Mexico and the South Americas to America, which is what they're trying to do. And so this is where the world's at. So you have these one percenters trying to overturn the Constitution, trying to overthrow the crown. You have King Charles thinking he has power, but not realizing the moment he doesn't do what he's told, they'll create an uprising and they'll just remove him just like they did the Romanovs. Because he'll then counter back and try to regain power, thinking because, well, I don't have to deal with the Magna Carta anymore. Et la tete, off with his head. And Prince William as well. And that's right now, Prince William playing off the racism. They're trying to press Lady Markle out of the royal family and push Prince Harry and Lady Markle out of the working royal family. And then Lady Middleton, because that rivalry, she couldn't deal with that either because of her narcissism. You can remember most royals are actually quite psychotic, to include myself. So, but the whole time the queen consort is the one who's pulling the strings, and then she owes the 1% because she harassed and harangued, and she essentially killed Princess Diana for the 1%. And then Charles thinking, oh, that's true love, but realistically, he's just a jackass. Don't get me wrong, Princess Diana probably was, she's rich, so she's probably just as much of a jerk, but at that time, and she was young, she was, 19, 21 or something like that, she thought she was going to be more clever than she really was. And he was 10 years older than her, but she was still full-blooded royalty. And, but there was never an opportunity for them to pair bond because Camilla was always constantly being the cluster B that she is, being the demon, because look at her skin, look at her wrinkles, she's just a demon. She's not a person. That is a vessel of a demon. So now here I am, here I sit. So they've been attacking me. When I go trading, they've hacked my computers. Everything. They're so terrified of me. And so now they keep moving the goalposts, trying to say, well, if he doesn't get this thing done by the end of, then he's going to be kicked out. And then because I've got this one guy, the owners of the place where I'm renting, well, he's about to lose everything if he lets that happen. He doesn't realize that, but that's all right. Bigots can't bigot by themselves, and will destroy him. and everything. And if he moves anything for after this date, I'll be sending a letter. And if he moves his properties, or he tries to bury him into multiple nesting dolls of trusts and LLCs, all of them are collapsed into one, and I'll destroy them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to it, because the contract is $250 million. I mean, $250 billion at minimum. I'm sure I can find a mercurial lawyer who's willing to go against the world to save the Constitution, make a fuck ton of money, several $billion worth, and kick the shit out of some evil people. Don't take a lot of backbone, but there's one out there, one or two. That's all I need. Who are willing to, like, what? I'm going to sue. Yeah, you're going to be suing a lot of people, and you're going to end up making a lot of money. It's going to take a couple of decades, but by the time you're done, oh, and I'll still be paying you at the same time. By the time you've done, you save the world, save the Constitution, stop World War III, go down in history as a freaking savior, one of the saviors of the planet, the guardians of the galaxy. Dude. Yeah. So where do I stand now with all of this craziness, insanity? Besides the world gaslighting me, you know, Putin trying to do the war in Ukraine. And explain something before we continue. It's Putin's little war. If he keeps this up right now, NATO is not going to, unless Putin really lays down a dirty bomb or something silly. NATO's not going. Doesn't. It's going to keep let Ukraine fight the fight. And true, Ukraine wants to fight that fight because it's like if they fight and they win, they get to sit at the big country table. So it's better for them to do that than for us, NATO, to get involved. But if Putin does something stupid, we'll sink all the yachts in Vladivostok and we'll take out 10%, 10 to 50% of the Black Sea and North Sea fleets. And then we'll continue to let Ukraine kick his ass. Right now, 1% is trying to keep working whites, AAPI, straight black men from going to DC and forcing Congress to bring Trump to justice and to reset the constitutional order of the United States and uphold the contract, because they're trying to blame me. Look through it and it's like, oh, you can't have that. And I'm like, I'm not asking you for your fucking permission. The royal family is worth over $10 trillion, probably closer to $20 trillion. So a $1 or $2 trillion contract actually fits within the bounds of the royal family, and it's enough to get their attention. And and as an American, I'm an entrepreneur and a capitalist. I'm not an employee. They can go fuck themselves. And they're trying to get that jealousy going, and not instead of seeing what they're losing, they start seeing what they're gaining. And they're going to try to, well, you need to do. Nope, the contract wasn't between you. The contract was between the sovereign and the state, as myself and Her Majesty, and that's it. And you have no rights to get in the middle of any contract by American, European Union, or British law, British and Commonwealth law. This isn't a negotiation between anybody else. Period. The end. And besides the fact, well, then you're going to say, well, we won't protect the Constitution. Okay, you're an idiot. So you're going to let the 1% roll over you, but you're going to willingly let Elon Musk become a trillionaire. Tesla's a $1 trillion company. Elon Musk will be the trillionaire, but he earned it. So did I. I knew what to say. I knew what to do. I knew how to put the effort in, the time in. And I also know, also I'm pretty sure the military wants me to unscrew up the military and put these ideas I have as far as technology actually into use and in play. which I'll gladly do because we need to stay ahead of China because they're part of that axis of fascism going on. But I'm still getting my 100 days of snowboarding in per year. Still gonna go live in my van. I'm not changing my lifestyle, and I informed Her Majesty, and she was good with that as well. That's the thing about freedom. People talk about freedom, but they really want the freedom to take away yours. That's what these id-focused persons babble about. They want freedom to steal your life, to take it, to steal your life force, your energies. And I want the freedom to use my life force, my energies, my God-given talents. And so that's what I'll do. So in defending my freedoms, I'm also defending everybody else's. Defending the guy, because the guy who just wants to go out and do, get a little lady, and maybe get a cabin in the woods and raise his kids right or whatever. But they get bigotry and racism going, and then they steal the freedoms of those same persons. And they tell you, oh, he's taking your shit. Well, no, I really don't give a shit about your shit. So what they're really doing is they always externalize. Then you got the black women who, over the generations, are, very toxic. Now is the time to show courage. What are black women doing? That little interview thing that Kim Kardashian was doing was just stating, oh, yeah, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Be afraid, not doing anything, not standing up, not having courage. Making excuses. Then being angry when someone points it out. How childish. They've destroyed the black American community. Was it 90% of marriages that are failed are separate, are done by the woman because men are taught not to quit. Women, she makes more than the guy. All of a sudden, well, he starts looking, hypergamy, starts looking for another dude. The whole Tammy Wynette, stand by your man thing just gone out the fucking window. 90% of the marriages in the black American community are shot. So it only leaves the gangbangers and the faggots, and then maybe a few clergy is the masculine. Not the guy who gets up, does the 9 to 5, come home, takes care of his kids, make sure they're fed right, make sure they have a safe environment to grow up. Maybe he smokes his little weed once in a while. And maybe he does a drug once in a while, New Year's, whatever. But for the most part, he's just getting along, doing his best. That's not good enough anymore. Women starts being all toxic, then she runs up to the faggots, attack her. Well, first she goes to her girlfriends, and then they all go, girl, blah, 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 blah. And they run to when that doesn't work, then they run to the faggots. When that doesn't work, then they run to the gangbangers. Give all their pussy for free, pardon the language. Leave the good men broken. Then you got the cops coming in. Militarized. Can't get a break. Constant attacks. Then they practice on the blacks, and then what do you think coming to next? The whites. Then you get the 1% trying to get the black and whites getting all right in fights, kind of like with these assholes around here. Get them all bigoted. You got the fucking psychopath off to my right, and you got the psychopath Seal. So actually, he's more narcissistic. Off to my left, who should never have gotten through buds. Then you got the kid in 204, who I know the Joint Chiefs said that he make a great Green Beret, but his racism has gotten in play, and so the psychopath, and he see how easy it is for him to be wrapped up in stupid, breaking into my place, because the psychopath the narcissist can't do anything by themselves. It makes them all feel like they're cool. Oh, we're beating an NSWDG guy. Not even close. So, a dude who had high integrity, had the option, had the possibility of high integrity, gives it away for so easily. That sucks. It's kind of sad. All because of something that's external, something called race that doesn't really exist. Just a tool to manipulate the weak. So, hydrogen, one of the things we're looking at hydrogen is we need to know how much is hydrogenated fuel. Working into that's something else. Captain Kennedy cohort. Oh yeah, DNC owes me $200,000, and if they don't pay me, I will bury them into the ground. There is no, and because their whole goal is try to say, well, you're supposed to be doing this, for love of country. Well, I am doing it for love of country, but my master's is entertainment business, and my thing is marketing, and with the main thing focus on branding, and it's my processes on brand response marketing that helped Obama win 2 elections, and it's been used throughout all change marketing from 2008 on. So, and I've always placed myself out as a consultant, and as a royal, I cannot get into politics. But since that, and once again, I said this to Her Majesty so she understood, as since this is my professional thing, because that's the other thing that Disney and the Carlyle Group and all of them are trying to steal my brand identity. Kathleen Kennedy constantly, if I do something, she'll put out something else. Like right now, she put out something, see, you're being Sith-like. No, I'm not. I'm being smart. And then she's trying to devalue who I am. And they tried to first try to say I was gay, then tried to say I was a special person. Then you have Mick Raven trying to do the whole pedophile thing. So she's gay, Mick Raven's a pedophile. Whatever. Trying to press their negativity onto me. And I'm like, nope. I'm not a Jedi. I don't. Please try to place the whole. You're gonna be a Jedi. Nope, not that. I am me. Was raised Catholic and Episcopalian. Went to for a while. Went to one Unitarian Universalist, but I'm mostly a mystic. And that's the reason I went Unitarian Universalist for a while. It wasn't the gay folks. It was like, hey, this fits aligns with my belief of universalism, which says, and that's the main reason. The only reason there are gay folks that one uses is because it's more liberal religion. And it's funny. Of all, like, you have these evangelicals and talk about the Constitution, blah blah blah. None of these evangelicals actually signed the Constitution, but there were Unitarian and Universalist who signed the Constitution. It's one of the main, it's one of the first religions homegrown to the United States. The second one would be kind of like Mormonism, and even then Mormonism is more of the id focused, type. So that's one other reason I was like that. So they're trying to do all these things. So she's trying to steal. To have brand theft, steal my 20 constant placing my movements and my internal apartment out online. I never asked for anybody to do that. I assumed originally it was the gangbangers maybe have done it or whomever. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was McRaven. Well, I don't know. Pretty sure it was McRaven. But trying to embarrass me and show like, yeah, this guy, because I'm on the opposite ends of the country, and this chick is I'm mind fucking this chick, and nobody's ever seen this before, and she's this little party girl, LA party girl, and getting 1%, little trust funder, just getting her head fried by a dude riding his motorcycle the opposite direction, going the opposite direction. And she's going to jail because if Madison Orange does not file the rape charges against her and the minor celebrity, Madison Orange won't have a pot to piss in when I'm done with her. For the rest of her life. I don't care and I will put her out onto the streets. And so she'll have to make a decision, her or them. And with that, I get to the last point of this whole situation. As I said earlier, King Charles III has not ascended to the throne. I, as royal blood, make a claim for the throne, since King Charles III will not uphold the crown, and he is apparently attempting to overthrow the Constitution of the United States of America. I, His Royal Highness Eboton Jackson, duly hold my position as statement as an heir to the throne of Great Britain, and make claim to that throne. And he will now say no one will hold up that claim. And I go, yeah, probably not. But if Prince Harry does not uphold that claim, he will not be defending his wife, and he will not be defending the crown. If it were to be, well, I shouldn't say if, when I ascend, I will only be there for 90 days to only uphold the crown and the Constitution. 90 days max, or until the 1% cry uncle and finally pay up. At that time, if I have not left, or the 1% have not paid up, as a standing order, the crown guards are to remove me from the throne. To which point, since I have no children, I appoint neither Harry nor Prince Harry nor Prince William. They will have to make that decision. Whoever survives that situation becomes the king after me. Now, while there will be those who will say that you don't have that right, Archbishop of Canterbury, you know I do. As the Queen's champion, you know that I do. Her Majesty's champion, you know that I do. My fellow mechanics, Freemasons, members of the Lodge, other prime ministers, heads of states, if King Charles ascends without upholding the contract, he will become a tyrant. And it also meant the Constitution of the United States has not been upheld. Because they're trying to play this whole till the end of the month of next month, and while in the meantime getting into my computer and constantly hammering my position so I can't make any capital. That's what they've been doing for the last 6 months. And then Kathleen Kennedy and the gangbangers and the cartels think that they will have control over the royal households of the world. This is a standing order to the King's Guard, 90 days, or the 1% have paid within 90, and the 1% have pledged their loyalties to the crown, not so much me, to the crown, and then Prince Harry or Prince William figure out who's going to be the next king. But as long as Queen Consort Camilla will sit upon that throne without being held in position, the world will be burned down to fire and ash. And my word, and is my bond to Her Majesty, and my signature and my blood, is I would defend the crown and the Constitution. So she bound them two together through me. Black Americans and working Americans, working class whites, which means if you're not a capitalist or you're not in the 1%, guess what? You're a working class white. Do not uphold the Constitution. If the 1% can keep bamboozling you with Christian dominionism, which is a bunch of BS, talking about the Constitution when they really mean this Confederate Constitution, then yes, I will do whatever it takes to include overthrowing King Charles III to uphold this Constitution of the United States of America. Quitting is what other people do. My oath, my first oath, is to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States. And I will uphold my oath. For many persons greater than me died to make it real. All you have to do is march and hold your congressperson to do so as well, to overturn a president and reset what is rightfully due to the American people. But it's going to take courage of a different sort. Happy Thanksgiving. And glory to democracy. And may the flag forever wave over these United States of America, land of the free and home of the brave.